Let's move on to the next poster presentation entitled Association between Flood Risk and Hypertension Prevalence in Isabela, an Ecological Study, presented by Ms. Justine Cagaanan Cabalay.
Better? Hello. The Philippines ranks third worst in terms of disaster risk. On 11th November 2020, Typhoon Ulysses stormed the main island of Luzon, releasing destructive winds and cooling heavy rainfall that triggered massive flooding in several areas, including the province of Isabela and Region 2, which is one of the most severely affected. Despite the damages caused, there is still a lack of local research for its health impact, particularly non-communicable diseases. Our study is entitled Association between Flood Risk and Hypertension Prevalence in Isabela, an Ecological Study. The study aims to determine the association between flood risk and hypertension prevalence among all the municipalities and cities of Isabela for 2019. So flood risk is defined as a function of hazard, exposure, vulnerability, and coping capacity. This equation is derived from a research study in the Philippines that assessed the relationship between the four components. We have data for the aforementioned indicators. Data from verified secondary sources, which is the Philippine Statistics Authority, were collected and flood risk was calculated using predetermined rates. Measures of central tendency and dispersion were used to characterize the data. Hypertension, flood risk, and its components were tested for association. Lastly, the results were visualized in maps. So disaster hypertension is one of the greatest factors of disaster-related cardiovascular events. It may be caused by psychological stress, environmental changes following a disaster, increased salt sensitivity, and a disruption in the circadian rhythm. Natural disasters also lead to poor food availability and initial relief aid delivered to evacuees in shelters that have high salt content and could thus lead to disaster hypertension. PTSD and anxiety development due to natural disaster increases incident hypertension risk by over 30% and early incident cardiovascular diseases by over 50%. So the group did an ecological study, which is an epidemiological, analytical, and descriptive study for populations. The unit of observation is a community or group of individuals rather than a single individual. So in this study, municipalities or cities of Region 2 are used. It is often a measure of prevalence and incidence of disease. And for this study, we measured hypertension in relation to flooding. So the results show that Isabela has a high flood risk. As seen on this flood risk map, contiguous areas have similar flood risk profiles. This shows how spatial distance plays a role in the experience of flooding. Flood risk was positively correlated with hazard and vulnerability only. Among the four components, these two are considered the least modifiable, implying the need for systemic planning and community-wide approaches. Increasing coping strategies then should only be imagined. Nonetheless, Isabela's mean hypertension prevalence is low. Results show no significant association between flood risk and hypertension. As hypertension is a chronic disease, time is needed for it to develop. Isabela may be capable of quickly returning to stability after floods, especially if the floods do not have the same impact as large-scale disasters. Limitations to these results could be due to the availability and to the accuracy of the data and the difference in collection times. So geography plays a role in flood risk, and mitigating flood risk needs strong political will. We cannot change the flood, but the component of risk, specifically hazard and vulnerability, are modifiable, implying a need for systemic planning. This study could be a starting point for future studies that would want to correlate the impact between environmental events and non-communicable diseases, urging the need for community-wide approaches. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you. We actually, oh, sorry, yes, sir.
Source of information on hypertension in this area.
Mình online to.
The Department of Health in Chakri, we conducted some personnel and personnel to ask for hypertension.
Thank you.
Please explain that how the study hypothesis of hypertension and flood risk. Do you have any good idea of hypertension and the disaster? What is the main idea of this hypothesis?
The main idea behind it is because of the investigation, other studies that disasters can actually lead to hypertension, which is the disaster hypertension. So we wanted to assess whether the disaster flood, especially in flood, will actually lead to chronic hypertension as well. So that was the basis of our study, and aside from that, I believe also has cardiovascular morbidity and so I believe it's one of the blood pressure problems we want to address.
Thank you.
Let's move to our online judges.
Yes, your design is geographical correlation or individual patient correlation. When you do the correlation study, what is the unit of the analysis you use?
This is ecological setting, so we believe in the group of individuals, so the data from per city and that so not an individual.
Yeah, what do you explain your result that it's not like the previous study? How do you explain your result? There is no association. Maybe it is agricultural area, or maybe it is area where I think there are some maybe ecological policy that some other professors explain this result.
Yes, sir. Actually, there are limitations. For example, the area where we are doing this is, I think it's supposed to be for as many areas, but we are limited to the area that have available data. So that is one of the limitations.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.